It drives me nuts to see someone show a picture of a piece of land and say, what should I do with this land? I'm going to help you approach new land purchases, and if you've got idle parts in your property, how to consider your possibilities. I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. So first off, posting a picture of your land on Reddit or on social media or on a message board and asking people what should you do with the land ignores the most important consideration when it comes to owning a piece of land. And that is, what are your goals and objectives? So if you don't have a written list of your goals and objectives, then there's no way possible to do anything other than get some ideas when it comes to your land. But those ideas will be based on other people's dreams, desires, goals, and objectives. And frankly, it's kind of a waste of time, because a picture of the land doesn't convey what types of native plants are there, what kind of layout do you have, what's the past land usage, all these other factors. So what we want to do is you want to approach the land as an explorer. You want to do nothing with the land when you first acquire it, or if you're going to acquire a piece of property, you acquire property for a specific reason. So you start with the end in mind. What do you want this property to do? Is it going to be your homestead? Is it going to be a small farm to sell to a farmer's market, or a small farm to raise animals that you'll sell direct? All of these options are available. And by the way, I do have a program called How to Make Money with Your Land, and it includes a catalog of many different ideas. But again, even having a giant list of 100 different ideas or 100 different ways to make money for your land has very low value if you're not understanding what is already there. Where are your access points? Does the land already have water? Are there different elevations of the land? I'm working on a piece of property, 25 acres. From the beginning from the lowest part of the property to the highest part of the property is only a 40-foot elevation. That's not a lot of head space if I was going to collect rainwater and use it to irrigate the property. Now it's enough because I was able to find areas where there's level ground where we can have roads and access, and then we could basically pump water through a circular water system. But again, if that's not going to suit the needs of the land, and it's not going to fit the requirements of the landowner, it's basically ideation, basically hot air, and has no value at all. So the first thing you're going to do, if you already own a piece of land, is you're going to look at its historic uses, you're going to walk the land, you're going to get access to the land. Now, I've got a couple of videos where I show you where we've used forest mulchers to get access, but in other cases, we've cleared the entire property. Now, I'm looking at a picture right now that kind of sparked this need to share these details with you, because people waste so much time, so much effort asking others what they should do with a piece of land. But the picture I see here looks like a hayfield that's half covered with shade. So if you've got a piece of land, let's say it's a big open field, and you're like, what should I do with it? We need to look at sun angles, solar profiles. So the sun angle is how, based on your elevation, how is the sun going to traverse across the property? Solar profiles are, is there something that's going to shade? So maybe you've got a nice level embankment on a mountain, and the sun is behind the higher elevation of the mountain most of the day, so that land is shady. That land is not necessarily good for a number of things. It may not be a great garden site. It may not be a great home site. It may have limited use, because the only thing that will tolerate in shade like that will be animals, assuming the temperature doesn't get too low. So yes, it is a very complex decision of what to do with a piece of land. It feels better when people give you ideas, but if you implement the wrong idea, it could cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Over the life of the land, hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you're going to put a greenhouse in an area where you don't have good natural light because it's shaded most of the day, then you're likely going to have to heat that greenhouse. So now you have an input. So another thing you want to do when you're looking at a piece of land is look at the energy cycles of that land. You also want to look at subclimates of the land, again, tied to the access, because it does you no good to have a market garden half a mile away from your house that's perfect for the market garden sun-wise, but all your buildings and your equipment is up next to the house. So the best solution is not to just go sling for ideas. It's better to do a little homework with the land itself, and then go out looking for solutions based on the land that you have, based on the goals that you have. So if you want to raise small animals, sheep, goats, hogs, those types of animals, chickens, ducks, rooster is a chicken. Long story short, small animals, you go and look at how others are raising those animals. You look at the conditions that are ideal for that animal's health and that animal's well-being. You look at the amount of space that you need. Another property that I'm working with has 12 acres. And so we calculated the goat load pressure for 12 acres. And then we backed it down to 12 1-acre paddocks. And now he can start with the goat load for 1 acre, while rotating the goats through the other paddocks. So there's 12 paddocks. And then over time, he kind of knows his head, the top number of animals he can have on the property. Because it's kind of a round area, the design is to put a goat shelter and milking barn in the middle of the 12-acre pasture, or the 12-acre, it's a wooded lot, but there'll be a little open area in the middle for the goat shelter and the milking barn. And then there'll be a number of stalls in the middle that allow the separation of goats, because mom goats with little kids are going to need to be separated. And then a path around that so that he can just open a gate to the paddock that's going to be used, or the cell within the overall 12 acres. And then open the gate to the goats that are going out there. And then ring a bell or something, and the goats will run out in the field. And then you can close some gates. So there's a whole structure involved there. But the only reason we can do that is because the majority of the 12 acres is level ground. So it's level ground. It's currently got scrub brush on it. And there is a central point that is level. So we're going to have to path out to the central point, build the buildings, build the courtyard. That'll allow him to get his initial goat stock going. And then start fencing in, whether it's temporary fence or permanent fence, start fencing out those cells. We're suggesting a permanent fence around the outside of the 12 acres, and then the cells being temporary fences internally. Because if the goats escape from the cell, you want them trapped in the overall permanent fence. But again, this wasn't the first idea. You take the ideas from your research. You may hire a permaculture design consultant or an agricultural consultant, and you're then going to start mapping out water sources. You're going to start laying out all these ideas and then start building them out on paper. So again, I understand where people are coming from by showing a picture to a group and just getting ideas, but those ideas are useless. They're even dangerous in many ways. Going and grabbing a few books from the store, the permaculture design manuals, grabbing some of these homesteading manuals, and just getting started with those ideas is going to be more productive. It's going to be more focused, and it's going to complement actually walking the property. So if you got an idea what you want from your homestead, small farm or estate, and then you start walking the property, you're going to start seeing things that nobody will ever see with just a photograph of your property. You'll be able to pull maps from the city or the county. You'll be able to pull satellite images. All of these things are what we go through to build what's called a site design plan. And even in your design plan, you're going to have these one-page sheets that are different projects. So the goat enclosure and the goat milking barn. Could you build the enclosure first and the milking barn later? Make it modular in case you have a funding limitation. Could you fence in the 12 acres and let the goats just be open and have a portable shelter that you move between the 1-acre paddocks? Could you put fewer goats in a smaller, more central area so that you don't have to enclose the whole 12 acres, but design your fence in such a way that it could be easily pulled up and removed? Maybe you're using T-post fences. I got a quote on fencing in 25 acres, and it was $49,000. That may not fit in your budget, but a 1-acre paddock might, or fencing in a large rectangular area that you can separate by temporary fencing might work. But if you're raising cows instead of smaller animals, then those cows won't fit in for every cow-calf pair, you need a certain number of acres. You might end up with one cow-calf pair, which is 1,000 pounds of meat, where you could get on the same acreage almost 2,000 pounds of smaller animals. So again, I understand the desire that you may have to share a picture of your property and get people's feedback, or to have friends give you feedback, but it's not qualified feedback based on the land, and you really ought to be an expert in that land. Survey the trees that are out there. Survey the vegetation. How does the sun lie on the land? How do access points or potential access points lay? Could you put an agricultural well in? And if so, where? And what's its relationship to the home site, to your house? Should your home site be at the top of the hill, the bottom of the hill, or on a shelf near the hill? All of these things depend on your climate. They depend on the lay of the land, and it is not as simple as just asking people. If you want greater satisfaction in designing the property that's ideal, right for you, it's going to be walking the land, going to credible sources, going to educated individuals who are professionals in the field, and then starting to move towards a design plan. Now, a full-scale design plan could be $8,000 to $10,000. You may not be ready for that. You may just want to do an overall design plan, list your goals and objectives, a couple site surveys that's going to list, the observations of the land, the challenges faced, and some potential solutions. And then finally, put together one-page sheets that are going to be the projects. They're going to be, goats, the chicken house, the rabbit place. Can we stack all three in the same area? If we do, what's the security for those animals so that they don't get predated? What's the accessibility so that you can feed them on a daily basis and check on their safety? I visited one farm, and the guy had his house on top of a hill, and he could see the chicken coop. But if there's a problem in the chicken coop, he couldn't hear it, and he couldn't get to it in a timely fashion. And one time he's running out in his boxer shorts with a shotgun because there's a raccoon tearing up the chicken coop. And by the time he got there, he killed the raccoon on its way out, but it already had killed 10 or 15 good quality laying birds. So again, if the chicken coop was closer to the house, he may have been able to respond faster. He could have turned on remote lights because there was power where this other coop was away. These scenarios are serious. You lose money by simply getting people's opinions rather than going, say, I'm using air quotes, a doctor in design and having them do an analysis and talking with you about your goals and then moving towards some kind of design plan. Now you can use if you're working with me, you can use a paid consultation to start getting the goals laid out and start getting the high level view of your property. But ultimately, you need to be the expert of your land. Walk that land, camp on that land, go experience it different times of the year and seasons. It feels like you're delaying progress, but really you're going to make more sure and focused actions. You're going to get better results faster. You're going to make fewer mistakes, and ultimately it's going to serve you better in the long run. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. If you've got questions about what we covered here, and if you want to see some of the videos and resources that I mentioned, you visit www.prosperityhomestead.org. That's all one word, www.prosperityhomestead.org, where we've got numerous resources to help you get more from your small farm, homestead, or estate. Thanks for listening.